Chapter 21. What if I could get there somehow? If I showed up at the sanctuary when it was time for the expedition, they'd see I was serious, that I wasn't just some kid doing a project. Even if I couldn't get out of the boat, I'd be at the sanctuary when they tagged Blue 55. I'd see him swimming in the bay while a song played. A 12-year-old could fly alone. If I left in the morning on a school day, my family wouldn't notice I was missing until after I'd landed. But the closest airport was almost a 3-hour drive from the sanctuary. I studied the map on the computer screen. An airline ticket would let me cover almost all the distance between 55 and me. The hard part was the last 150 miles. If only I could grab onto 55's song and let it carry me to him. I was afraid one day soon I wouldn't feel his music anymore. I didn't know how it would all work out yet, but I had to try to get to him. I'd go as far as I could and then take a shuttle or a bus to get as close to the sanctuary as possible. Maybe I'd get caught by then. It wouldn't be hard for my parents to figure out where I was headed, but I couldn't give up on Blue 55. Buying a plane ticket was a whole different issue. My radio repair money wouldn't take me very far, even if I had enough. I'd have to buy the ticket with a credit card. I leaned back in my chair and glanced up at my shelves of radios, then sat on the floor next to my bed. An idea was creeping into my head that I didn't like but couldn't push away. I brought up 55's song on my phone, feeling the vibrations on my hand as it played. Hadn't I made him a promise? With the edge of my shirt, I polished my fingerprints off the side of the Philco. My email to Mr. Gunner was short, but it felt like it took me an hour to click send. I'd always said I'd never sell my radios except in case of an emergency. I posted a few of the radios on eBay as 2-day auctions so the money would get into my account faster. The next day, after school, I hurried home to pick up the Philco. I wrapped it in an old bed sheet so it wouldn't get scratched, and maybe so I wouldn't have to look at it. Tristan said he'd take me to the antique shop. When he saw me in my room next to the sheet-wrapped radio, he asked, "Isn't that?" "Yeah," I signed before he could finish. "Mr. Gunner really wants to buy it. I don't mind letting it go." I looked away so he wouldn't see how much the lie hurt. But at the same time, it was true. Letting go of the radios would let me reach for something I loved even more. "Can you carry it for me?" "I'll wait in the truck." I slipped past him and ran downstairs. Mr. Gunner looked so happy when we walked through the door. He must have been worried I wouldn't show up. I couldn't really believe it myself. When I was older, I'd look for a Philco to buy again, maybe from a kid like me who had a really good reason to sell it, an emergency. I peeled away the sheet and held the sides of the cabinet one last time, probably for a little too long, because Mr. Gunner looked at me and raised his eyebrows like he was asking a question. I let go. He knelt down and checked out the radio on all sides. His face showed me he was impressed. He plugged it in and turned it on, then smiled as he listened to the music. Mr. Gunner's open hand circled his face, then closed. "Beautiful." He thanked me and reached for his checkbook. "Thank you," I signed to him before I left. I hurried out of the store ahead of Tristan, trying to outrun the thought that I could still change my mind. "Wow, you really did it," Tristan signed when he got back into the truck. "Can you take me to the bank?" We pulled into one of the drive-through lanes, and Tristan put a deposit slip and the check into a plastic tube for me. I ran my finger around the face of the compass and looked out the window, pretending not to notice Tristan staring at me. Then he tapped my arm, which I couldn't ignore. "Sure you're okay?" he asked. "Of course." I gave what I hoped was a convincing smile, and I sat back in my seat like I did this every day. No big deal.